started,
You've got a friend in me. That's all I gotta say. You've got a friend in me.
Brady, I'm gonna keep ripping paper till you turn that shit off.
Ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, welcome to another joint show, joint podcast, joint fun session with our peoples. Welcome to whatever show this ends up being. Aaron Jones, James Berkey, say your hellos.
Hello.
Hellos. Is that it?
I guess.
Cool. Good podcast, guys.
Yeah.
All right,
sick.
well, that's been fun. I'm glad you guys joined for the day. Well, actually, I do have something else. We have Cowboys news, because that's so much fun, right? Don't you love Dak, Amari, and all that fun stuff, right?
Sure.
Well, as we know, Dak Prescott looking for a contract. Ezekiel Elliott looking for a contract. As we know, Amari Cooper looking for a contract. Guys, what are your thoughts?
On which one?
Whichever one you want to start with.
Well, I mean, I know that they,
I mean, I think Zeke is the one that's most deserving of that contract. I mean, of those guys, Amari's shown himself, especially with that late resurgence when he came to the Cowboys. Yeah, he's really good too, but I mean, of those guys, I think Zeke is the only one that you can make a strong argument for being the best at his position. I don't even think Dak touches the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. So, I mean, if you're paying someone, pay Zeke first.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I disagree, though. I think, is there music in the background playing right now?
Maybe.
Okay, that was tripping me out. Sorry.
Breaks the monotony.
I think it's Dak. I think Dak is the most important. And, for me, I've always thought that, if you have a quarterback, you can be successful and find another running back in the late rounds. Not that, they drafted Tony Pollard. Not that he'll be the next coming of Zeke. But I think that, if you look at most, Super Bowl winning teams, they have a great quarterback, and they might not necessarily have a good running back. We saw this last year. The Rams have an all-pro running back and a Pro Bowl quarterback. And the Patriots, it was more running back by committee. And they ended up winning that Super Bowl. Sorry, Berkey, I'm not trying to bring back any bad memories. But I just don't think it's, when the Broncos won, we didn't really have a great running back room. So I think Dak, is more essential to their success just because, the ball's in his hands every play. But I think I think it'll be harder to get a deal done with Zeke. Obviously, we've seen, he's in Cabo right now for training camp. So I don't know. I think that Zeke, it will be more difficult to get a deal done, but I think Dak is more important.
But I don't think correlation equals causation on that. I think a lot of those teams that won the Super Bowls weren't, especially recently, their quarterbacks were not on major contracts, except for guys like Brady, obviously. I mean, Russ, he was still on his rookie deal. Nick Foles was on a backup deal. Joe Flacco, he was on a, let's see, that would have been his, I think he would have just been finishing up his rookie contract by then, because that was 2012.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers would have still been on either just finishing up his rookie deal, if not already on a new deal. I'd have an acquaintance of mine point that out, that a lot of teams that give quarterbacks those mega deals don't necessarily find success. Now, I think also the correlation does not equal causation. I think that also applies to that, because there's a lot more factors at play, and it's not just like you sign a quarterback to a big deal, it's a death sentence. That's just completely illogical. But I think pure talent...
Well, I mean, look at Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I just think, pure talent-wise, I think Zeke is better. Dak is a good quarterback. I thought he was just mediocre last year, and I thought the addition of Amari Cooper... I thought he was still mediocre when Amari Cooper came, and it was just Amari Cooper who was balling out. So that's why I'd put Dak towards the bottom of that.
Here, I'll give my 10 cents on it, because I think it's important that we all have varying opinions on how this should work. In my opinion, I believe your priority re-signings should be Ezekiel Elliott first. And my biggest reasoning behind that is he's stayed healthy. Todd Gurley was a guy that got paid. Although he has his knee issues, he still ended up getting paid.
When he got paid before that all came
Well,
out.
absolutely. But you knew about the knee injuries from college. I mean, you knew about this. And the major thing with Zeke is he's stayed healthy, he's stayed consistent, and he's been that dominant offensive player that you have to scheme for. Nobody's scheming for Dak. Nobody's scheming for Amari. But if there were one player that I have to re-sign, it has to be Zeke. Secondly, Amari Cooper. He's not a top 10 receiver in the league. He shouldn't be paid as such. But in terms of where he's at, Dallas, big market, he's going to get paid. I think he deserves a Sammy Watkins type contract, 3 years, $48 million. Was that right?
Mm-hmm. I think it was 4 years.
Well, I think it also depends what he does this year, because when he's in a good situation, we saw that AC/DC combination. Yeah. Let's see what he does in this full year, which is another reason. I still don't think Dak has proven himself. Zeke has proven himself, and Zeke has, if you're giving a contract now, I think now you give it to Zeke. Dak still needs to show that he can win games on his own, and he can elevate that team. He's a very safe and reliable quarterback. I wouldn't say he's anything extraordinary. I'd say Zeke is extraordinary. I'd say Amari can be extraordinary if he takes that next step, and let's see what he does in a full year in this new system and a real different, attitude. He's coming in a stable locker room, unlike last year with Oakland when Gruden was trying to push all of the old guys out, all of Del Rio's guys. I'd say this is the year for Dak and Cooper to prove themselves. I think it's very wishful thinking for them to think that, hey, I deserve the contract now, when really I'd say Dak hasn't. I don't think Dak has proven a lot, and I think Cooper has proven less with this team.
Let me tell you something. I think, I agree with you, right? Zeke has proven himself, and he's probably more worthy to be paid. But, last year Dak threw for 3,800-plus yards, 22 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions. So, yeah, he's not going to go and put up Pro Bowl caliber numbers, but he's probably the safest bet at quarterback in the NFL if you think turnover to touchdown ratio. And to me, that's proving yourself, right? The Cowboys have been competitive since Dak has been there. He took the job from Tony Romo. Obviously, that was near the end of his career and pending injury. But Dak has performed up to the level of at the top of the end of the league in quarterbacking, and I just think if this team doesn't have Dak Prescott, they don't make the playoffs. If this team doesn't have Ezekiel Elliott, they still make the playoffs, in my opinion.
I don't think they do. I don't think they make the playoffs because you missed most of Zeke 2 years ago, and that was a real kind of not bordering on disastrous year. It wasn't disastrous, but definitely underwhelming year. But also, I want to look. Those are solid numbers. First off, especially in today's day and age, throwing under 4,000 yards is not worthy of demanding a new contract. It would have been 15 years ago.
But throwing less than 10 interceptions.
Yeah, but also look at his passer rating. 96.9. This isn't. It's above average. If this was 2007, 2006, that would have been really good. But it's just not that anymore. Year before, 86.6, and then even look at down the stretch, I saw a number from Pro Football Focus where their algorithm for passer rating didn't really change much when Dak got Amari Cooper, which is why I think it was more Cooper just balling out and than Dak necessarily just improving. I think he was really coasting on just how great Amari Cooper is.
I understand that. I just, I think this Cowboys team is going to be a lot like the Denver Broncos that won the Super Bowl 50, in the fact that, the quarterbacking wasn't there. Not necessarily the quarterback, but we played it safe on the quarterback, right? Peyton Manning turned the ball over a lot. Dak doesn't do that, right? And this Dallas Cowboys defense is going to be top 10 in the league. So I think for them to be successful, they kind of need to, have him in. He needs to be the starting quarterback there, in the fact that, he will keep the defense on the sideline while he has the ball. And I think, if you score enough points and let the defense do their job, because Dallas does have a good defense, that they go really far. And I don't think they need Zeke to do that. I think it'll help, and it'll kind of propel them into that next level where we're talking about, will they make the NFC Championship game? But I still think they're a playoff team without Zeke.
I don't know. I think we need to see, now that Dak has probably his most reliable set of receivers yet. I think this could. I like Gallup. I think.
Well, and they got Randall Cobb as well.
Depends. So, if they do, I mean, if Zeke does miss time at the beginning of the season because he's still on holdout, then I think we're going to, which is why I think asking for it now and is just really jumping the gun, because we need to, if Zeke does miss time, and now that Dak actually has better talent, probably his most complete set of receivers yet, then we'll see what they can do. But we did, I mean, with less talent, we did see what Dak could do without Zeke, and it wasn't terribly impressive.
Yeah,
and that was in 2017.
But now he does have more options. He has a Amari Cooper that he'll be able to spend an entire offseason
we think he has more options, but we haven't seen this new regime in place, which is why, like, at this point, it's just all speculating. And really, we can say one thing, we can say A, we can say B, but we don't know how real A or B are going to be.
It's true.
Until we get this season underway. Because, I mean, I've heard people saying, like, oh, well, they look great in training camp. It's training camp. If you don't,
everyone looks great.
If you don't look good in training camp, you're not going to be in the NFL.
Paxton Lynch used to look great in training camp.
So here's where my mindset goes with the Dallas Cowboys. You have to look at the roster as a whole. You have to look at it as a giant under perspective. The major thing about them is they have a lot of talent. They're arguably the most, or one of the most, top 3 for me, talented teams in the league. Byron Jones is a lockdown corner, arguably top 5 corners in the league right now, and he's an athletic freak. You have DeMarcus Lawrence, Jaylen Brown. You still have Sean Lee, Leighton Vander Esch. This team has a amazing defense, but the thing is, if you're going to re-sign Dak and you're going to re-sign Amari and you are going to re-sign Zeke, who are you going to give up on defense? Everybody is crucial there. And I think there's something we have to think in perspective here. If you're going to pay somebody now, everybody wants to keep Dak. Everybody wants to keep Amari. Everybody wants to keep Zeke. But who are you giving up in order to make this happen? Who is expendable? And in my eyes, Dak is the most expendable. The way to win in a modern NFL is to have a cheaper quarterback. Not saying that, an expensive quarterback is the death of a team, but having a quarterback on a rookie contract or having a Tom Brady taking team discounts every single year.
Yeah.
It's having the ability to maneuver with the cap with what you have. And if you pay Dak $30 million a year, you can't do that.
And I think you make a really good point, because I think everything that Aaron and I have been talking about has just been thinking about the now, the here and now. But looking down the stretch, if Leighton Vander Esch continues this kind of play, I mean, he's going to command top dollar for defenders. Byron Jones, DeMarcus Lawrence, Taco Charlton. You're going to break.
I wouldn't add Taco Charlton in there, but yeah.
I mean, let's see where things go. But I mean, at the least, he's a key contributor, and he's not going to demand a big. I'm not saying he's going to demand a big contract, but if he's a key contributor and you cut in those lower mid contracts to make up for paying Dak and Cooper or Dak and Zeke, then you lose that 6-7 sack guy who takes the pressure off your 11-sack guy. Then you lose your... I mean, I can't imagine them letting Leighton Vander Esch go if he continues to play how he has been, but then who knows, maybe you lose him, maybe you lose Byron Jones, and then you're really screwed.
Well, see, I kind of disagree with you in the fact of, like, I understand if you sign these top players, you can't keep people in the future. But all 3 of these guys are guys that, these are the face of their franchise. And if you think a slightly more immediate than this season, the only really big guy that they have on defense who will be a free agent next year is Byron Jones. So it's only one guy. Whether you can re-sign him or not, wait and see. But I mean, I besides Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch, and they've already locked down DeMarcus Lawrence. Those are the only 2 guys you got to worry about really on defense if you're worried about star power and having the best roster. So I don't think it's that big of a deal for them. I think Jerry Jones especially would rather, he'd keep Dak and Zeke and Amari over anyone on defense almost, pending 2 players. But I think, I think Jerry Jones wants to keep that trio together more than anything. So we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, I mean.
And on the case of, I got to argue with Berkey a little bit. On the case of Taco Carlton, I think, yes, he is a contributor, but he's had 4 sacks in his career, and I get he's a young guy. I just don't think if you're gonna bring up, I'm not throwing shade at you or anything.
Go.
But I think if you're gonna bring up key contributors, there's other names you can bring up. Christian Covington.
So
being
then,
one of them.
so then take out the Taco Charlton and put in Covington. Put in literally anyone else. So really, I guess my argument was not Charlton.
I guess I'm focusing too much on the Taco Carlton.
Yeah, it felt a little like my argument is not that guy. My argument is that that concept of that key contributor.
Yeah. They're gonna lose. Well, and it's like when the Broncos had won the Super. I keep referencing this, but that next year, is it we want to have a sustainable roster for 5 years, or is it we want to win a championship? Right? When the Broncos won that next year, we lost Danny Trevathan, Malik Jackson. A plethora of players. T.J. Ward left. It was a different situation, but I think it does depend on, do the Cowboys want to win a championship? Because they're not going to do it right now with anyone other than those three. Those are the best three options they have.
It's so tough for me. I hate on Dak so much, but he is a competent quarterback. At the least,
he's a better Joe
competent
Flacco.
quarterback.
He's a better Joe Flacco.
And I'd say he's better than at least half of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL. I think you could think of at least 10 to 15 teams that would pick him over what they have right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you this. Okay, if you were, let's say you're the Cowboys, but you don't have Dak Prescott, you have Mitchell Trubisky, who I think is a very, very similar player. I think Mitchell Trubisky is a little bit more athletic and is much more of an improviser than Dak is more of a field general. But would you, with either of those quarterbacks, be able to win a championship? I mean, if you handed Mitchell Trubisky the Cowboys roster right now, would they win a championship?
I'd say so.
Including the team they have now.
You have a better chance. Yeah,
I'd say he does because
he's a better quarterback.
I think he also has that X factor. He, like you said, game managers, field generals. They're not. Well, I feel like Dak is more of a game manager. He's more of a Bob Greasy type guy. Brad Johnson. He's better than Brad Johnson.
Joe
but
Flacco.
I'd say. No, because Flacco was a real strong arm. I mean, he had that X factor. I'm thinking of guys like Bob Greasy, who was a very competent quarterback in the 70s on some outstanding Dolphins teams. But he wasn't going to throw lights out. He wasn't going to drop like 350 yards, 300 yards, which at the time was amazing. He wasn't going to drop those consistently, and it was like the Dolphins won today because of Bob Greasy. No, they won today because of an amazing catch by Paul Warfield or the defense or Larry Zonka, Mercury Morris. I don't and maybe in that respect, Dak has more athletic talent than what I think of from a game manager guy. But I'd say Trubisky, I see him moving around a lot more. I see him really trying to extend plays. And granted, I haven't seen every Cowboys game, so I can't say for sure, but my interpretation of what I've seen from Dak is that he can be that, but he isn't really that. And maybe that's because he hasn't needed to be with Zeke, but who knows?
Well, and I think, too, Mitchell Trubisky, we've gotten a sample size from Mitchell Trubisky. We know what we're going to get out of Dak. And I'm not saying – I've already said Dak is a good quarterback, and I'll stick by that. But I think Mitchell Trubisky's better. His jump last year, obviously you have a great defense to play behind. But Dak did too, and I think Mitch is just getting better and showing signs that he's more of a complete quarterback than Dak Prescott is. While the athleticism isn't there, I think by the end of his career, Mitchell Trubisky is going to be exponentially better than Dak. As just a pure passer even.
And that's fair. And here's the thing. You are going into a year, and I can't there's no way I can see this as a feasible solution to the Cowboys' problem, but would you consider trading any three of these players? And if so, who would you consider trading?
I mean, if you consider trading anyone, it's Zeke, and the reason being, it's
All right, Colin Coward. Sorry.
Watch it, Brady.
I mean, I feel like Zeke is I think he has a point, though. Zeke seems to be the most stubborn.
Well, and what's the most expendable thing to trade as a running back? Look at years past running backs that have been traded. And even right now, Melvin Gordon wanting out of San Diego. It's just
L.A.
San Diego.
Whatever.
Wow, it's been like 4 years.
I'm never going to stop saying San Diego.
I don't know how many people are going to.
Yeah. But, a running back is way more expendable than a quarterback. Look at, teams replacing running backs do it very quickly.
Yeah,
as in the Broncos haven't found a quarterback since Peyton Manning left.
That's
it's
also
just
because of
drafted a
complete
quarterback ever.
incompetence in the front office. But that's
yeah,
neither
but I
here
mean,
nor there.
regardless, we drafted a quarterback in the first round. It didn't work out. I'm just saying, what are the odds you hit on a quarterback, and what are the odds that you hit on a running back? They're way higher.
I think you also have to look at what the market has available right now. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of any
free agent
quarterbacks or quarterbacks up for trade or potentially up to trade that would be worth reaching out for.
Yeah.
And I think that's first off, that's never really been a major story in the NFL historically, but when it has, it's usually one guy a year, one guy every couple years. That really comes out, like Kirk Cousins recently, or you go back to the 90s, like Warren Moon, something like that.
Jay Cutler?
Not even necessarily being traded, but just available like that. Like someone you didn't bring up through the ranks or you didn't draft and they were ready to go. I would say that even though I think Zeke is the best, I think you have more options for immediate replacements, especially even though the Great Wall of Dallas isn't what it was a few years ago. I'd still say they're among the best offensive lines, like top 5 in the league right now. I mean, Darren McFadden ran for 1,000 yards. Alfred Morris could run for 1,000 yards behind that line still.
Marion Barber ran for 1,000 yards.
I mean, but that wasn't with this offensive line.
Yeah.
But I think with that offensive line, you can still get a contributing running back. He's not going to be a game changer, but he's going to be reliable. So I think Zeke could be the more expendable of the three, maybe Cooper. But if you trade Cooper, like you're already setting Dak back another year.
Well, and you're not going to get, if you give Amari Cooper the chance to revitalize his career this time, you're not going to get as much for Amari Cooper for the value that he actually holds.
Yeah.
You're going to get a first-round pick for Zeke. That's in itself is a bunch of value.
I feel like you'd get a first-round pick for Zeke and Dak, but at the same time, I feel like they're more faces of a franchise than Amari is. Amari's still the new kid on the block with the Cowboys. I mean, it's such a tough thing, but if you have to trade any of them, I think you have to trade Dak.
Why?
I don't think you get a first-round pick for Dak
at all.
I think
Zeke is the only one you would go for.
I mean, you could get him in like Madden, but the league is in Madden. Trading first-round picks is a very, very special occasion.
If you trade a first-round pick,
and that's why it's such big news when a team trades a first-round pick, because it is almost always like either this is what we have to do to get this guy. Like, we don't want to give up this pick, but we really want that guy.
Yeah.
I think that commands like a third-round pick, which is still tremendous. I think anything in the top 3 rounds, and particularly third round, that's a very undervalued round to pick in.
I just think they need a plan in place before they trade Dak. You don't need a plan in place before you trade a running back.
And I can agree to this, that if you are going to trade a quarterback, you are rebuilding. Can we agree to that?
Typically, yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to trade Dak, then you're kind of going into a rebuild. My biggest thing is, okay, if somebody does go out and say, okay, well, you take Jameis Winston and a third-round pick for Dak Prescott, would you take something like that? Or would you take Marcus Mariota?
I think if you're trading for I think it would make more sense to replace Winston with Dak with Mariota, because they have similar play styles to me. Winston is a real kind of gung-ho, no bars, like,
more of a gambler.
Back. He's a gambler. Mariota is safe, and if you could keep Mariota healthy, I'm a believer that a healthy Mariota can be a really good quarterback. But you give him a good offensive line, I would like to see that, but that's the only real combination I could see, because then if you get a guy like Winston, you're gonna have to change your whole scheme. You're gonna have to change a lot of the guys you have there. Right now, I think if you were to trade him, Mariota would be the only one, but then does Tennessee want Dak?
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing is, every team, there's windows where you can win championships, right? And a lot of that, relies on having a stable quarterback. And, if Dallas trades Dak Prescott, for a guy like Mariota, or Winston, they're setting themselves back. They're closing that window because their team is, look at Dallas without the quarterback. That is a very competitive team. So if you put another guy in there, you're taking away from that window of time. Okay, now we need to swoop in and if they're 5 games over 500 at the trade deadline, they go all in and try to win a Super Bowl. If you have a different quarterback, you're not in that position anymore, and you only have these guys for a certain amount of years, and you want to use it wisely and try to win a championship. Again, it comes back to do you want to win a championship or do you want to win games? There's a difference, you know what I mean? So I think if they trade Dak, that window is that whole mindset of okay, when are we winning a championship changes completely.
You're conceding at that point.
Yeah,
I think this situation is really a rock and a hard place because of any three guys to ask for new contracts. These are probably the 3 you wouldn't want to ask at the same time.
Yeah, you're gonna have to pay them all a shit ton of money.
This is gonna be a really pivotal point because I think I've had the Cowboys on a real upswing and upward trajectory. Even though they didn't, I thought they weren't amazing in the playoffs last year, but the fact that they had that trend towards the end of the season and they played late how they did, I mean, that's the sign of a real mature team. Yeah. It's a sign of a real mature team, and a lot of those teams that get hot late like that, that bodes well for your future. So I think this is going to be a really pivotal moment in modern Cowboys history about how they proceed with this situation.
And I will say,
I would. You know what? I think the return of Jason Garrett is huge to this team, to the maturity of this team, because Jason Witten has been around for so long, and the fact that he's back brings a veteran presence that was there when Dak was drafted, and was there when Zeke was drafted. I think Jason Witten is an underrated return because that veteran presence is huge. And if this team can get to that mature point and can develop further and you can keep this core together, there's nothing stopping the Cowboys.
Also, if the defense plays like how they did in the last half of the season, I think you can even concede some offensive talent because I thought that defense was
phenomenal.
Damn good late down in the stretch.
Absolutely. Conclude. You want to finish?
One more thought.
Okay.
I will say, since we're talking about Zeke and Dak and all these guys, it's kind of a weird prediction, but I'm thinking that either Melvin Gordon or Ezekiel Elliott will be an Indianapolis Colt by the beginning of the season.
Interesting.
That's my big,
they got the money.
Yeah,
they got the money.
And they need a running back.
Well, saying that, so what I will do, because we'll move on to a different topic after this, but when it comes down to it, at the end of the day...
I got Berkey erasing stuff over here.
At the end of the day, and give me one sentence answer to each of these. What happens to Dak Prescott?
He stays and pursues a new contract next offseason.
I think he stays and, does that 1-year prove-it deal, and he'll... prove to us that he's the same. This is one sentence, right? He proves it, gets re-signed next year.
I think those 2 sentences.
Comma, he gets signed next year.
I think that's a run-on sentence.
Hey, he didn't say it couldn't be a run-on sentence.
I think Dak Prescott re-signs with the Dallas Cowboys for 6 years, $31 million. That's my guess.
So what happens? $5 million a year or 31 a year?
31 a year.
Okay. I was like, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Well, what happens to Ezekiel Elliott?
Ezekiel Elliott gets traded. Is that a run-on sentence, Berkey?
I think he might get traded. Honestly, it's a little tough to gauge the situation right now. At least in my eyes, it needs to develop a little more.
Period. Run-on sentence.
Ezekiel Elliott will sign a 4-year, $16 million a year contract. That's what I'm guessing. And what happens to Amari Cooper?
I think Amari Cooper gets traded. Well, no, sorry. Amari Cooper signs a top 5 receiver deal.
Yeah, Jerry Jones is known for bad decisions. I could see that.
Well, I mean, the thing is...
Is that your sentence, Berkey? Jerry Jones is known for bad decisions?
That's my answer to all of these. Jerry Jones is known for bad decisions.
I want to make this point. You pointed out Amari Cooper's not a top 10 receiver. That's very true. But it's not about your standing in your position. It's about who's up next, right? Like every guy that it's their turn to get paid always gets paid more. You know, these Pro Bowl guys, they always get paid more. So I think you know, he might not get Odell Beckham money, but he's going to be a top 5 paid receiver.
Interesting. Well, I think Amari Cooper signs a 3-year, $50 million deal. Very similar to Sammy Watkins, because I think Sammy Watkins is overpaid as well. I guess we can all agree on that.
Absolutely.
All right, so go ahead, plug your stuff, gentlemen. It's what we do.
Oh, I don't have my computer charger with me, but Bazinga. Coffin Corner Podcast. That's probably made you not want to listen to it now. But yeah, on Twitter, Coffin Corner Met, YouTube, Coffin Corner Podcast, Facebook, all that jazz.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Bames Jerky. I also host a podcast here on Met Radio, 5280 Listening Club. If you like music and you like listening to albums, you like discussing them, and even their cultural importance, then that is the podcast for you.
And they're very literate on that show.
Yeah, I couldn't be on that show. I feel like I'd get kicked out, or I'd be shamed. I'd be ultimately shamed.
There's
by
only
Berkey
one
and his
way to
goons.
find out.
Yeah.
That's
Challenge
so scary
accepted.
fat. And I'm Brady Pieper, host of the Pieper Sports Podcast and creator of the Pieper Productions YouTube channel. Check me out. Subscribe to me there.